Welcome back to the North American Challenger Series semifinals. We're heading into game 2 of our series here between eUnited and Big Gods Jackals after, well, pretty quick 24-minute game 1 from eUnited.
Yeah, it was a pretty massive stomp, most of it coming off the back of Dandy. If you look at his kill participation, it was very, very impressive. He was involved in almost all the kills early game before the map kind of exploded and broke down into a lot of solo kills. You saw Licorice start picking them up in the top lane. Bot lane was able to grab some as well. So he had a super impressive game, and especially just starting off with that invade right away, just setting the kind of the message for the game that, like, we're going to be in your face this whole time and killing SirT at just level 3.
Yeah, and just kind of setting up the snowball that would eventually happen, only for himself, but also for his solo laners. Got JBM ahead with a very early game mid lane dive. Got Licorice ahead off of that, but just kind of recalling, going back into the jungle and immediately diving the top lane. And then was a big participant on the bottom side of the map with that teleport play early on. eUnited just kind of putting full pedal to the metal here. Some new picks on 7-14, but now Big God Jackals to get a chance to reset a little bit. They've chosen blue side for this game, so we'll see if anything changes up in the pick and ban phase for them.
I think that's the thing is, I can understand maybe you're not sure if the enemy team is going to play Cho'Gath. It is a complete menace up on the top side. And so you say, all right, well, we'll leave it up and maybe it falls to us on red side. Who knows? It's a pretty risky strategy overall, but I'm okay with Big Gods taking some risks in the draft phase, trying to get advantages. You saw them leave the Caitlyn up on red side, something that in previous patches was considered crazy. You didn't see that often. So they're obviously trying things out, trying to find their footing here on blue side now. If the Cho'Gath does fall through again, they can first pick it, assuming RF Legendary is able to play it.
Yeah, well, at the top of the day, you also mentioned that now we're on best of 5s. You have a little bit more room to kind of play around in the series. You have more adaptations to make between them. Big Gods Jackals, they got a lot to learn from that series, the last game they just played, because it was 18-1 in the kills department. There was 2 deaths on Danny. One of them was an execute, and they just kind of got bullied around all throughout the early game. So we'll see what adaptations they make here in this best of 5 series. I thought you might be in for a quick night.
I mean, that's the thing, is that we talk about this Cho'Gath pick being super strong and all that, but it wasn't like it just took over the game by itself. It was well coordinated on the side of eUnited. Even that first blood by Dandy was keyed off the fact that deftly had shot a hawk shot into the bottom jungle, and they saw SirT clearing down there relatively low. Saw the Wolf camp up, knew he would be there, and you know, Danny's kind of camped there and waited till it got a little bit lower before he kind of hopped over and then looked for that kill. So very impressive stuff on the side of eUnited, and we'll have to see if Big God Jackals can bounce back here.
Yeah, you summed it up really good right before the commercial break, where you said that even though Danny was the one to get things rolling, it wasn't just one person snowballing the map for eUnited and just kind of being the solo carry. It was a big team coordinated effort, and they utilized not only just the hawk shot and the team communication, but vision control, more importantly vision denial, as we kept seeing Big Gods Jackals have to wander into their own jungle blindly.
And here in the draft already, we see the fact that Cho'Gath banned out by eUnited. Don't want to risk giving that one over as a first pick. Not as willing to take risks in the draft, given that they probably consider themselves a stronger team. You don't want to give up an extremely strong power pick. And Big Gods Jackals banning away that LeBlanc right away.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, too, we've also seen them ban away the Caitlyn now that they're on blue side, so they may have a priority pick in their heads for the red side. It looks like it will be the Rek'Sai. It was banned away by Big Gods Jackals in the first game. This time around, they're on blue side. This is their priority pick that they're looking for.
I'm going to be interested to see how people choose to build Rek'Sai in competitive, given the fact that the AD is relatively stronger now with some of the more aggressive itemization choices, potentially. I mean, even when you did go Warrior on Rek'Sai in the past, you would still often go with things like Titanic Hydra second. Will we potentially see a more aggressive build out of the Rek'Sai? We'll have to wait and see. That said, with all these new priority champions bouncing up for both teams, the Galio falls through. Yeah,
and this is a Galio flex for eUnited as well. We've seen Zeyzal play in the support position, but looks like he will be going reprising his role on Alistar this game, as the Galio could be a top, it could be a mid lane flex pick, but still, like you said, priority pick that we would think would be crazy to be left open before, now falling through.
And the big thing is that just with their first 2 picks, eUnited have already secured themselves a monstrous front line, right? The amount of damage reduction that comes in with both these champions is very intimidating when you're trying to chew through somebody. And the thing, too, about the early Alistar pick is you're kind of saying to Big Gods Jackals, we're not scared of your bot lane. We don't think you can bully us to the point where you're exploiting some of Alistar's weaknesses early on. And we're going to get a ton of utility out of this pick later on in the game. So it's a little bit of a, you know, kind of disrespect in some sense to take Alistar blind so early on. I mean, there was a time when you would do that, when you could max E and kind of play every lane out safely and you know, just be on the back foot the whole time, but it's no longer quite like that with the heal now being on his passive.
Yeah, so a bit of a different play style from the Alistar, but like you said, eUnited not afraid to just kind of flex their muscles a little bit. Zeyzal had a good performance on it in game number 1, didn't wind up dying, but again, not a lot of his team did. But it's going to be Kalista and Thresh, a big kind of bully lane coming out from the side of Big God Jackals. Jackals, they say, you're going to blindly pick this Alistar into us again, we're going to punish you for it, or try to.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is that this is kind of the test of the game, right? I mean, the Caitlyn pick, very strong, good at punishing things, but they paired up with the Braum, which is just a good matchup into the Alistar should you go late game. This time around, they're actually just taking 2 champions that should be able to bully this Alistar very hard. So if this is something that eUnited is able to get away with, that spells big trouble for big guys Jackals in game 3, because you can expect another Alistar game if you're not able to ban it away. And like we said, with this big front line already secured, you can go ahead and grab that Kha'Zix pick. As we move into the second ban phase, already the Rumble taken out, and they have gotten rid of the Corki once again, which is something you want to see on eUnited. Don't ever want to give that over to Pekin. It is hands down his best champion in the meta right now.
Well, they banned it away in the first pick phase last time around, but this time by going, I guess, maybe setting it up with the Alistar blind pick, they're able to get that Corki banned away in the second ban phase and not let Pekin move take it. However, banning away some safe picks here with the Orianna in the mid lane, but also the Camille ban coming through, so this may be indicative of maybe wanting you to go for something like a Jarvan in the top lane from the side of RF Legendary, but also just taking away something that Licorice can cause chaos with if it's a mid lane Galio.
And it's something we saw at the TSM series this week, is you combine that with the mid lane Galio pick, you have a ton of dive potential on the side laner. The Hextech ultimate locks him in place, the Galio ultimate comes on top of the Camille, you don't have anywhere to go, you just kind of get blown up. So feels like that they were anticipating that a little bit, given that we know Licorice is a fantastic Camille player. So understandable to see that banned out right away, and we see a Miss Fortune coming in.
And under the radar lethality.
Yeah, not the first one you think of. You think of the more utility-based ones like the Jhin and Varus.
Well, this one just being a little bit more straight up about damage, a little bit more about potentially the team fight coming out from, you know, her ultimate, the bullet time, being able to shred through. It also combines extremely well with the Kha'Zix, as one of them is going to be building a Black Cleaver, specifically the Miss Fortune, lowers all that armor, lowers the resistances already for the Kha'Zix, who's building, you know, the Dustblade like we saw last game.
So we'll have to see exactly how that works as well against Thresh and Kalista. Not a super mobile champion, so you might be in threat of one of those dangerous level 3 flash flay lantern back ganks that you see out of the Thresh. As well as the fact that this is a Rek'Sai on blue side, you have some of those very, very exploitive jungle paths around the Raptor clear. You hit level 3 just 2.5 minutes into the game, and you gank while the enemy team is still level 1. So eUnited are going to have to be very aware of that, as we see the Gnar taken blind, and eUnited grabs the Poppy.
Don't remember Poppy being picked into Gnar a lot, although this does solidify the fact that it's going to be a mid lane Galio, so there's going to be a lot of damage reliance on this Kha'Zix and on the Miss Fortune, so that armor shred will potentially be prioritized, because you have a Poppy who is a very difficult tank to deal with in the later stages of the game, super annoying, no one really wants to have to deal with it. And you have Galio, who does have wave clear, does have an okay amount of damage, but also a big beefy front line. This is an eUnited lineup that just wants to kind of get up in your face again.
It is a little surprising to see that Poppy. I mean, so they take the Gnar, kind of forcing the Galio to have to flex mid. It makes sense. I mean, Galio's happy to go there versus Syndra. Maybe a little bit difficult early on, but you just stack some resistances and you match up just fine versus Syndra. The surprising thing is what they chose to put into that position that they're flexing the Galio out of. The Poppy, way back when they initially came out, had a decent matchup into the Gnar, because you just E at him, you put your W up, he can't hop away, you lock him down, and you had a lot of damage back then. Poppy has received a ton of nerfs since that time, so the individual matchup, I'm not quite sure how it goes anymore. I'm a little bit concerned that it might still be difficult for the Poppy, but you do have the good gank setup, like I said, being able to interrupt that jump.
Yeah, and not only that, but now that I'm kind of thinking about it, you have the steadfast presence from Poppy, you have, you know, the taunt coming in from Galio, and you have Alistar, who basically is just a no button if you're trying to engage on their backline. So Miss Fortune and Kha'Zix, who, like you mentioned, Miss Fortune specifically has to kind of be protected in the backline, not extremely mobile, just kind of stays in place to do the majority of her DPS. This is just basically a front wall that you're not going to be able to get through, whereas if you're big gods Jackals, you have a little bit more of the guys who want to jump in. You can't get that big Gnar ult animation cancel initiation that you can get if the Poppy just puts up the W, the Alistar just heads you backwards.
True, but if you ever do misposition and let's say deftly goes down early on in this Miss Fortune, your team comp is suddenly lacking a ton of damage, as well as the fact that just generally speaking, Miss Fortune isn't the highest DPS AD carry around. So this is a little bit curious of a draft for me out of eUnited. I understand it. You have a huge front line. You have a lot of engage potential. MF just kind of throws her damage in from the backside. Kha'Zix, as everyone gets low, starts leaping forward and going crazy. You also have some protection, like we said, out of the Galio being able to throw the damage reduction on the Kha'Zix, something we saw kind of premiered at MSI. All that said, it is a little surprising just how they got there. They could have got a better matchup on the top side. You mentioned the Jarvan. That does decent into Gnar, has gank set up as well. Then you have like a better damage threat potentially. So I'm a little surprised to see it go this way.
Yeah, so if you're at your big gods Jackals, you know, we said eUnited threw out a lot of new things in 7-14 in game number 1. They're still kind of taking some new things as well. They're putting the Galio in the mid lane, which we haven't necessarily seen GBM play a heck of a lot of. If I recall, maybe like 1 game tops, but not a GBM
not a
champion.
ton, right.
Yeah. And then we got the Poppy in the top lane we haven't seen in a decent amount of time. And Miss Fortune in the bottom lane. The last time we saw her, she was mainly a support in the bottom side of the map. So then you have a lot of different kinds of things once again. And now if you're big gods Jackals, you have some priority picks. You got your Rek'Sai, your first pick overall. SirT was the guy who was trying to make things happen. Now you're going up against a team composition that we're a little perplexed about ourselves. This could be the game that you can try to win and bring the series back. Even if you lose this one, it's going to be difficult.
Right, and we talk about, okay, late game you find a flank onto MF and you kill her instantly. How does eUnited win the team fight? You can also do that early game. If you're able to use, like we said, that Thresh just set up some ganks, or you do one of those aggressive paths down the bot side and gank at level 3 early on with the Rek'Sai using the creative pathing from the tunnels, you can also get a kill. And if you shut down the MF, it's the same thing as killing her early in a team fight, kind of, where she's no longer a big threat over the game. She's been held down. You've snowballed off for a little bit. And so you have some of these potential opportunities to find ways to get leads. And then I'm still, like I said, just not sure how eUnited's comp will play that out. All that said, it's going to be hard for Syndra. She's immobile. There's all this engaged stuff. There's all these front lines in the way. Who are you going to be able to actually get your Syndra ult on top of? Kalista has a lot of engaged tools with the Thresh, but it feels like, once again, there's going to be this big front lines blocking any target that you're going to want to throw it Thresh at, as well as who do you really want to hook other than Kha'Zix or MF on this team? Not too many choices.
Right, so big gods Jackals, while they have some priority picks for themselves, we'll see if they're going to be able to execute on this team composition. Once again, they look like they have some pretty decent lane matchups. We'll see if they're able to take advantage of those, or if eUnited with another kind of unorthodox champion select here in game 2, the second one we're seeing in the Challenger Series on 7-14, are going to be able to jump out to an early 2-0 series lead here in the Challenger Series Summer Semifinals. eUnited coming as the #1 seed, so we got high expectations for them against number 4 seed in Big Gods Jackals. We just didn't expect all these different champions being thrown out.
I mean, we talked about 7-14 being a little bit of a wild patch. Just not exactly how I thought it would be, you know? I mean, MF, yeah, it makes sense. Lethality got a bunch of buffs. You can see that one. Alistar got some buffs. Kha'Zix with all those lethality buffs. The Poppy comes out of nowhere for me.
I normally don't associate Poppy with lethality, but I mean, if there's going to be a lot of damage being thrown around, Poppy's like the late game tank that just never dies once you survive the lane phase. She was a good matchup into the Jace specifically. You know, that's not what the case is here now that you have RF Legendary and the Gnar. Mentioned we can just kind of deny any sort of initiation coming in, but we'll have to see how this one plays out. You know how much I love myself some Poppy.
Ah, I forgot you're a Poppy hater.
I am. He's my favorite champion.
I hope we stay up on the top side the entire early laning phase.
I really hope
I would love to see this Gnar Poppy matchup. I'm just really curious to how exactly it's going to play out.
I really want to focus on that creative jungle pathing you were talking about coming out from SirT on the Rek'Sai pickup. More specifically, not just to detract from my Poppy hate, but the fact of the matter is that SirT was the guy that Big Gods Jackals were looking to for those initiations when they were behind, but also the fact that Dandy abused him in the early game, and that's one of the big significant reasons they fell that far behind.
Oh, for sure. That was the big problem, was that early kill that he got. SirT hopefully going to have a better bounce back game, but like we said, you got to watch this Poppy early on, see exactly how this lane phase is going to go. You see some Buckler harass come in, going to throw down that Q, probably starting with that one.
I mean, when we used to cast the collegiate campus series. Actually, oh look, there's stuff on the bottom lane. Sorry, can't talk about top lane. Actually, definitely getting the heal blown extremely early on. You mentioned that level 3, the Thresh Flash Flay potential is out there, but also definitely not being super mobile and the Thresh being able to abuse the fact that Alistar is melee. Just getting up close and personal and forcing Summoner as well as level 1.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what you would expect out of this team, is the fact that they can kind of just run up to you level 1 and threaten to all in. And it's going to get even stronger when they hit level 2 here. But the fact is that they pushed too hard early on. They spoiled any potential level 3 cheese that SirT has actually been setting up for, as well as the fact Dandy smites of the way, denies the level 3 from the Rek'Sai, and he's just going to skedaddle out of there. Does not want to fall prone to this big jungle invade that's coming in on blue side here. They're going to take away his blue buff. Kind of unfortunate for Kha'Zix, but you got to think it might be worth it in the long run.
And you see Dandy immediately pathing to the opposite side, so we'll see if he winds up going for SirT's blue buff or if he's going to do something else.
Ping does go down on it.
So we'll see Dandy getting on that side of the map, which means PBM might get a little aggressive in the mid lane here against Pekin Woof Syndra. Rek'Sai's kind of wrapping around the backside here, but we see the Winds of War from Galio.
Yeah, so what's really nice here is that they actually saw SirT kind of wrap around up into their jungle for a moment. They did drop a ward over the wall as well as getting that Scuttle Crab. Dandy doesn't look like he's 100% confident going for that blue buff, given the fact that the top side is pushed in as well as the fact that his mid lane is pushed in. So even though SirT is on the bot side of the jungle, he is still scared of the solo lane collapse coming in. So overall, probably still a better trade for Big God Jackals, only because they had already kind of flubbed that early level 3 gank setup. Because normally what you want to do is you get into laning phase and you don't shove the lane quite that hard. So that way they're kind of exposed to the wraparound gank that only Rek'Sai can really do when you go for that Scuttle Crab XP Quint level 3. Dandy definitely had a read on it though. The fact that he was already down there gets the Scuttle Crab smite, but for the most part the gank had already been messed up by the all-in.
Oh, well, they're trying to go for something anyway. SirT's on the bottom side. The Lantern's going to come out. Actually, they wind up blocking onto Zeyzal, who tries to pulverize his ADC out of that one. A flash sword from fabbbyyy. The Ignite's ticking down, and Zeyzal with a health potion will barely stay alive.
And this is what we were saying. It was a little bit of a disrespect out of eUnited to take this Alistar pick so early on blind, getting abused super hard. So far, they've been hanging even in CS, but they've lost all their summoners down the bot lane already for just an Ignite and a flash on the side of Big God Jackals. Things are not going to get any easier here. They're going to shove this one in, probably going to go for a reset and continue to try and keep this pressure up on the bot side.
We mentioned that going over the team composition, you shut down Miss Fortune early on. It's basically like taking her out of a fight in the later stages of the game. She doesn't have the item advantage she needs to really, you know, well, to utilize the term again, like snowball the advantages that she would normally get during this lane phase. So they're punishing the Alistar in tandem. They're punishing the Miss Fortune, and then who else on eUnited will wind up dealing damage? That and the fact that you're playing into Big God Jackal's strengths by getting fabbbyyy, the guy who is their late game carry, the guy who really has kind of been the backbone for their team, ahead.
Definitely some questionable choices made in eUnited's draft phase, both in terms of the comp and the early laning phase choices. Licorice starting to get chased down a little bit here by the Gnar.
Well, turns it back around though. It does still have the heroic charge available, but RF Legendary is building up a decent Gnar bar, chasing that onto the Poppy.
This is kind of what I was saying, where I actually was a little curious about how this laning phase would go, just because, you know, Licorice can go charge in with the E, and you can then with the heroic charge, and you put up the Steadfast Present, can't hop out as Gnar, but if you're just ahead in trades already, you don't need to hop away necessarily. You can wait out the Steadfast Presence and just auto the Poppy, and that's one of the things that you couldn't do previously in the matchup, was just the Poppy was too strong. But like I said, she received a ton of nerfs since then. That was way back in Season 5, I think, when we initially saw this matchup much.
And so on the top side of the map, RF Legendary finds himself at even CS, no strict advantages, although he does have his jungler coming around the backside. There's no wards in the brushes for Licorice to sniff this one out, but he has a decent back timing, hits level 6. Has a decent amount of gold in his pocket, and will decide to go back as RF Legendary had gone so already. On back, got the Phage for himself as he picks that up and utilizes the teleport to get back to lane. But now we're going to see another first item here, 714, the Bramble Vest coming in.
Hopefully that works out. We see some initiation start down here on the bot side.
Yeah, definitely getting hooked in by Baiano, and even though he goes in, it looks like they're trying to buy time to get Galio in range. The hero's entrance comes in, and now there's a Galio and an Alistar here. Baiano has to flash away. fabbbyyy, though, trying to leap through, will wind up getting first blood. He's going to wind up going down shortly after that one to GBM, but it's going to be Big God Jackals getting a kill in first blood in a 2 versus 3.
Overall, a relatively intelligent play by eUnited to not kite back to their turret, but actually swing up to the river to try and get closer to GBM to get that ult in faster. He's able to join up with the rest of his team, but they throw all their focus down onto Baiano, who is actually the one who still had his flash up. So as we take a look at how this fight starts out again, able to land the hook basically through the Alistar, whose headbutt pulverized. I put him through it. They kite to the left. He's able to collapse here, but they should have looked for fabbbyyy. fabbbyyy has no flash available right now, but Baiano does. So the heal comes in, keeps him healthy enough, as well as gets him out of the fight. And now fabbbyyy is the one who is able to kind of go in while all that focus is down on the Thresh, pick up that kill, end up in a 1-for-1 trade. So small misplay by eUnited there.
Yeah, so while eUnited loses out on the bottom side of the map for first blood, Dandy's going to continue to be aggressive and take his red buff on the top side of the map here at level 5. Mid lane matchup, GBN roam down, got himself a kill, but he is at a level disadvantage for the time being as Pekin Woof is at level 7, though he himself will hit 7. Top side of the map, we see Licorice and RF Legendary continuing to trade blows back and forth. And after Big God's Jackals, I mean, this is a stark contrast to where you were at 8 minutes in the game in game number 1. eUnited, you're basically even in gold with them, just have a couple hundred actually in your advantage. RF Legendary is at a decent spot in this matchup, has not died yet, hasn't gotten tower dove, hasn't gotten a 20 CS deficit at this point. So you basically shored up the holes of the early game that you had problems with last time around. If you're eUnited, I mean, you have a bit more of a scaling competition. You don't have to snowball as hard early on.
eUnited definitely held in check a little bit this time around. The question that we had, of course, was how do these comps interact later in the game? Big Gods have not quite snowballed that bot lane advantage like you would have hoped. You know, they do have a lot of CS leads. That's why you see the gold advantage, about 400, 300 at this point. Also off the bonus gold from the first blood. But the big question is, will eUnited's comp actually struggle to be executed in the late game, assuming that it kind of gets into this mid-late game at an even gold lead? Still a big question mark for me.
Yeah, eUnited have been touted as the team that has some of the better team cohesion in the Challenger Series. Both of the United squads actually coming into the forefront of that. GCU historically doing it later on. eUnited kind of clicking from the get-go here as Licorice getting jumped on here. RF Legendary gonna go Mega. The boulder toss does get dodged out there by Lollipoppy. Definitely trying to get some ward clearing going on, but Baiano's going to find another hook. This Thresh pickup paying dividends here. Flash away from Deftly. Does have the bullet time available. He's waiting to try to get into a safe spot. Rek'Sai, however, is going to utilize that ultimate to wind up picking up a kill onto MF. Dandy's able to trade a kill. He flashes forward, leads on the fabbbyyy, but a flay out of the flash will mitigate that damage. Now Dandy trying to turn into Baiano. Red Bus ticking away. One more Q. The smite to follow through as well. Dandy picks up 2 for himself.
Overall, not a bad fight on the side of eUnited. SirT got a little aggressive trying to finish off the MF there, but he kind of had to go for that because if you let her kite out away from that, that bullet time is going to wreck you over the top. Is able to use some of those invulnerability frames off the ultimate to jump onto the MF and make sure he gets that kill. We'll take another look at it as, once again, definitely just a little caught out of position. It's one of those things where it's, why is deftly the one clearing the ward as opposed to Zeyzal, the Alistar? This is kind of what leads to this fight going so wrong. It definitely gets hooked right away. There you see SirT dodging out on some of the bullet time damage to make sure that he's able to collapse on that kill, but that puts him out of position. Multiple targets keep getting isolated, which is exactly what a Kha'Zix wants. Almost able to finish off fabbbyyy, but a nice play by Baiano keeps him alive. And not too bad overall, but still not what you want for your winning bot lane.
Well, looks like that Big God's trying to keep up the pressure here. SirT tries to go into Licorice, but he's just too tanky. Gets the stun against the wall, gets the Galio damage reduction. Now the taunt comes through as well. RF Legendary gonna get a justice punch to the face. He's trying to find himself a Poppy, but he's not gonna find anything but the cold embrace of death. Licorice picks up a kill.
And once again, GBM getting out of laning phase onto the map early on, just 10 minutes, following up on another aggressive play out of Big God Jackals that is able to turn around in eUnited's favor. Really impressive stuff out of him as it looked like they had been pushing a little bit too hard, but here we go again. GBM teleports back into the mid lane. He's setting up his own play.
Immediately goes back down to the bottom side of the map. Oh, there's control ward right there, so they don't know he's in there. The taunt coming out from the brush. GBM gonna knock up on the fabbbyyy. He gets knocked all around by the Alistar follow-up, but he will get the lantern to safety. eUnited, despite being behind, or not behind, but being even with Big God's Jackals in this game, not having the same advantages, GBM is still continuing to be a force around this map.
So here we see that play up on the top side. SirT wants to kick this off, gets stunned up, not quite able to get the knockup how he wants, gets it there. But the Poppy had already done so much damage that by the time GBN comes in and finishes him off, he gets kind of messed up. There's that taunt into Justice Punch combo, like you said, not actually able to get an auto attack onto Licorice. And at this point, GBM has done so much work on his own. Licorice walks back up, pops him with the buckler, catches it, gets that nice shield. Tom's favorite animation in the game. And eUnited grab gold lead now off the back of countering some of this aggression out of Big God Jackals.
Really off the back of GBM, and this is a different.
Oh yeah.
This is like, what was it, week 1 or I think it was week 1. We saw GBM on the Lissandra pickup, moving around the map and making things happen for all of his side lanes pretty much. Now he's doing it on a champion that has an ultimate to help him out. This is a different shade of GBM.
Well, this is one of the things you hear about Galio mid lane is that it's just so difficult to play against because you can't punish it in lane that well. Syndra, one of the most lane dominant champions in the game, has a hard time versus him because his early wave clear is decent enough. He's able to take some trades, he just heals up, and then he goes back and gets his first MR item. No longer can you shove him out of lane, and then after that he just matches your push and runs around and either sets up his own plays with his team. You know, he's a great diving champion, or if you try getting aggressive, he roams down to those plays and cuts those off. So he's such a difficult champion to play against in the mid lane. That's why it was a bit of a surprise to see it go through. the draft phase early on and not even get first picked away.
We saw definitely utilizing the bullet time in the bottom lane for a bit of wave clear duties, getting a little bit of damage on that fab and just forcing the Kalista to hop, skip, and jump away. Now Dandy walks over a control ward, but doesn't look like he's too deterred by that one. Maybe looking for a dive here, but there's no minion wave as RF Legendary doing a good job of clearing that one out.
Yeah, Dandy was wrapping around the backside potentially to join in. GBM had kind of left the mid lane as well and started fainting up there. So eUnited looking for a dive. Big God Jackals were reacting well to it, intelligently called off by eUnited. Both teams back off from that situation, and there we go. MF grabs her Duskblade already.
So first Duskblade of this game being completed there. So we had some lethality being built up, as well as some tankiness coming out from the side of eUnited. On the flip side, though, for Big God's Jackals, they're going a little bit more tried and true. We had questions as to what SirT was going to prioritize on the Rek'Sai. He has gone for the Syndra Hulk, since that one got buffed in the previous patch, 7.13, that's risen to more kind of popularity over the Warrior build here. We'll see if he wants it going for a bit more of a damage-centric build, going for the Titanic Hydra, or if he is going to be a big, beefy frontline for his team as Baiano. The other member of the frontline here from Big God's Jackals gets caught up by eUnited once again. The brush bait coming out from GBM is effective. He goes on to a killing spree.
Really nice play out of GBM. Last time it was Dandy taking over the game early on. You got to give GBM credit this time. Swayed the bot lane, swayed the top lane, and now he's being able to get aggressive in the enemy team's jungle.
For the longest time throughout, the challenger split, we said eUnited, they were the #1 team. They worked well with their team communication. They were kind of the complete package. We saw the graph at the beginning of the show that kind of summarized how they were 1 or 2 and basically all the different stat categories across their team. One of the things we didn't see was big star power coming out from GBM, or Danny being, like the Samsung White Danny that we were mentioning previously. But in this series specifically, both GBM and Danny have stepped up and look like a return to their peak form.
Who knows, maybe a bit of the big game player attitude coming back. So one of the things about Samsung White was that they had some games during that Worlds run where they didn't look particularly impressive. Some people even said, oh my God, they're trolling. But when push came to shove, they absolutely decimated people. And once again here, first round of the playoffs, crushing Big God's Jackals.
Yeah, eUnited definitely showing that they want to make it to the Challenger Finals, and they want to be the ones that win it this time, although their opponent will be determined tomorrow, where we have the Tempo Storm versus GCU matchup. That's another best-of-5 coming at you tomorrow. In case you wanted a double dose of Challenger Series action, we still have potentially a 5-game series here. As Big God's Jackals, though, they have fallen behind and lost the early game advantage. They're down and definitely not out.
Not out yet. They still are only down 3,000 gold compared to last game. At this point, I believe it was more like 6,000. So a better game overall, and like we said, maybe still some comp concerns if this MF drops down early on. The Kha'Zix does have a lot of damage, but it might be a little bit hard to actually get off. I mean, it's just going to be a big pig pile by the rest of eUnited's comp, really. All of them are going to be jumping onto a target, so Big God Jackals can kind of kite out of that. Why are you looking at me like pig pile is a weird term?
Pig pile's not exactly what I would think.
Well, I mean, that's what it is. You got 4 melee champions all diving onto somebody. It's a pig pile.
All right. I've just never really heard the term pig pile. That might be a Massachusetts thing, not a Jersey thing. But
who knows?
Big God Jackals bottom lane, where they did have some advantages getting jumped on here by eUnited. And teleport coming in as well from Licorice. eUnited are in full commitment to this one. Licorice going to try to zone away Baiano and SirT. RF Legendary teleported into the fray as well, but that's underneath the tower by fabbbyyy. Big God's Jackals may have been able to dissuade this dive here from eUnited, but eUnited with grouped up 5 on the bottom side, looking like they might try to push down this tower. But nope, they're going to back away and make it back towards mid lane. So good response from Big God's Jackals here.
Only cost SirT his flash. Everyone else able to get out of that one for free. Very scary for a moment there, though, because if you land some of that chain CC with the MF bullet time coming over the top, that can end up a bad play. Now Syndra caught a little out of position.
Ooh, Pekin doesn't have a lot of mana, doesn't have enough to scatter the leak backwards, as the 2 tanks of Licorice and GBM don't have a lot to kind of chase down on the Syndra and Executor. So he will get out alive, but Licorice on this Poppy pickup now, he's teleported down to the bottom, walking his way back up to the top side. I mean, he's survived the lane phase against RF Legendary relatively unscathed. He kind of has, this weird bread and butter build for Poppy, where he kind of goes for a bunch of components for later game items to get him through the lane phase, so he can itemize against all different facets, get some cooldown reduction, have a bunch of these different things coming out. But once he wants to completing that first item, we'll really see how annoying this Poppy pickup can be.
Yeah, a little bit of a Build-A-Bear item selection right now.
I understand that terminology.
Yeah. Grabbing whatever he can, making it work.
Ooh, Zeyzal.
Getting a little low. Able to be kept safe. SirT might find an opening. He lands the Q.
Well, the Prey Seeker is landed. Is he going to wind up going in with the ultimate? Looks like the answer is no, because eUnited has a lot of members there, and there's a tower still in their way. Big God Jackals, though, are going to try to force eUnited out of this mid lane area, but the Once again, Licorice and GBM are just kind of staying steadfast in this mid lane. Pigmo still barely any mana to his name. He's not going to be able to wave clear here forever.
I mean, that's one of the things that eUnited's comp will struggle with as well, assuming Big God Jackals is able to stay relatively even in the game, is that they don't have great siege. They don't have great, you know, ways to set up in front of a turret and just kind of force it down. They can dive you for sure, but if you're there with enough people, as RF now, speaking of dives.
Yeah, they're going to start it off, and Dandy starts off with the tower tank, forces the flash away from RF Legendary, and here's the Poppy to follow up, and Dandy gets the kill track.
Really nicely set up by eUnited there. They kind of knew he was coming up there. You saw Dandy sitting over the wall, waiting for him to get under the turret, and then the Poppy was in the mid lane, rotates up as well. They get that dive off, they get a kill. They're going to grab their first turret of the game, I believe. Giving the solo gold over to Licorice, that's going to be a very, very big Poppy.
Wow, that is an 18-minute and 40-second first tower, which is a huge difference compared to game number 1 when eUnited took the first tower in like sub 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, much slower paced game. We saw that aggression coming out of Big God's Jackals down the bot side. They almost were able to kind of blow that lead open, but they couldn't quite convert on the plays. And one of the kind of hidden upsides to that for eUnited is that, as we see a dive, once again, this time the bot side.
Alistar headbutt pulverized into the hero's entrance, but a good Fates call coming out from the Kalista, going to save Baiano's life. And looks like the SirT's on the bottom side to collapse. Danny, in the meantime, is getting the Rift Herald on the top side of the map. But Big God's Jackals didn't lose anybody.
Nope, could have gone worse for Big God's Jackals, but once again, you see the utility of that Kalista pick, able to save Baiano, but he's still low health, still not able to defend this turret. Looks like the second one of the game going to be taken here by eUnited.
Yeah, may have taken 18.5-ish minutes for the first tower to fall, but the second one falls like a domino right after that one, just a minute later. So Big God's Jackals, while they were hanging tight in the early game here against eUnited, now the towers have fallen down, the lead has ballooned for the side of eUnited, now about a 5,000 gold advantage for themselves. And we're at the 20-minute mark. It's not the same 10,000 gold lead as it was in the last game, but it's still a massive amount of gold in favor of eUnited.
Dandy was eyeing that 1v1 against RF Legendary, doesn't decide to take it. And like I was saying, one of the hidden advantages with all that aggression down the bot side, how telegraphed all that was the fact that it let Licorice play top lane a little bit more unsafe than you would normally expect to see. He was down at around 200, 300 health multiple times, a little pushed up in lane because he knew SirT was down that bot side. As long as he avoids the all-in by RF Legendary, you can take as much harass as you want. Just make sure you don't die, you get your recall off, and you go home. The concern is sometimes when you know that a jungler might jump on you and bring that extra CC. You never really had to worry about that.
Well, we see Big God Jackals and SirT continue to try to make movements on the map to take the Scuttle Crab around the Baron Pit areas that has now spawned the Licorice. Collapsing from the top side. They have a ward in that brush. They see RF and SirT. The Lantern goes out, but the taunt's going to come through. They're trying to make sure RF can't take it, but he does wind up jumping back onto it, so he's able to get out of there. He does wind up going mini very shortly after that, and there is a Rift Herald on the side of eUnited, so Big God Jackals have to stay in this kind of ARAM style mode to not let that tower fall.
I'm surprised they didn't just use it there. As long as they dropped it far enough back and kind of let their front line protect it, making sure that Big God Jackals didn't engage on it, I'm sure that Rift Herald would have had enough damage to take down that last turret. Maybe they're trying to save it for a situation that turret's already very low. Maybe they think they can get it another time.
Ooh, they're trying to jump on the Licorice. He's kind of left out to dry a little bit. We are going to see the Rift Herald being summoned at the same time, but the Poppy Copter's going to go off. Winds up knocking back a Pekin Woof, but not before he gets a parting shot kill from that ultimate onto Licorice. Definitely, though, with the bullet time rips across the team, and RF Legendary might be mega, but he goes down.
We talk about some of the hubris almost out of eUnited, sometimes think they're tankier than they are. Licorice waited a long time before charging up that Poppy Copter to knock people off of him. Able to get taken out there by the Syndra ultimate at the last second. And we were also talking about maybe saving that Rift Herald for a more opportune moment. They drop it when all that skirmish is breaking out up in the mid lane. They leave it down the bot side. It takes the turret on its own, and they're able to grab that mid lane turret that was already so low. So able to grab an extra turret with a good call out of eUnited there. Yeah,
and they balloon their lead now to almost a 7,000 gold advantage. 6.5, I guess, now that some of the gold has kind of settled down. But more importantly, we're getting big item spikes. There's a Righteous Glory that's been completed as the first item here for Licorice's Poppy. We've seen a Dust Blade of Drakthar picked up for Kha'Zix as well as the Miss Fortune. And interestingly enough, we now have GBM going for not just an adaptive helm to, you know, stave off some of the persistent damage from those Syndra orbs, but also gone for a Hextech Proto Belt, which is a different shade of Galio than we're used to.
This is a very different shade of Galio. I appreciate going for the extra offensive itemization, given the fact that we were talking about eUnited's comp potentially lacking damage. You want to make sure that you can bring some extra burst to the team comp. That's all fine. I mean, we have a soul killer of all items on the Galio as well, but The Adaptive Helm, a heavily criticized item by some other casters. You know, I don't want to single anybody out, but some people don't think it's the best item to focus, even against Syndra, a champion that does have a little bit of a spammable spell, works on her ultimate, but it's hard to justify it over some other MR items that can do a little bit more for you. There's no other magic damage dealers, really, so I understand not wanting to go for the Abyssal Mask, another popular first item on the side of mid lane Galios. But all that said, you could have potentially gone for, even just for yourself, to amp your damage if you are going for that more aggressive build in the first place.
Yeah, we've seen Spirit Visage be something that Galio has gone for in the past, and some other itemization choices, but this is GBM. He's built a Proto Belt as his second item, so he's in his own little world here with his Magi Soul Sealer 8 stack. We also see a Ghost Blade completed for Miss Fortune, so double lethality items picked up for her. Of course, the Ghost Blade has been shifted to be more of kind of the movement speed-based item. We've seen a lot of the Assassins pick this one up, but marksmen like the Miss Fortune and the Jhin, who aren't as mobile themselves, pick this one up for the positioning in those team fights and the ability to kind of get themselves out of sticky situations to get jumped on.
Very important for Miss Fortune because the way she works is she just wants to get set up in the right spot and then drop her ultimate. Doesn't need to be kiting out really the whole time. It's just get to where you want to be, drop that ultimate. Ghost Blade going to help out with that a little bit. And here we see eUnited early on starting pressure on Baron. They're actually going to start this one off.
Yeah, they baited out the first Scrying Orb coming out from the side of Big God's Jackals, but Pekin Woof has another one, so the second one goes down. It looks like eUnited are looking to try to turn this one into a fight. Good Scatter of the Weak stops the engage coming out from that Licorice teleport, and eUnited try to Baron bait, try to get a fight. Big God's Jackals disengage.
A little bit premature on turning off that Baron there. I understand you don't want to get forced down too low while baiting it in, but Big God's Jackals weren't that far into their own jungle at that point. They go for an early teleport. Big God just stuns out Licorice, backs off, and now they're down a teleport. They feel pressure to force another play as RF Legendary is still splitting down the bot side.
So, well, they have Licorice in the fray now, so they have their big beefy tank here, so Poppy's going to be able to tank up this Baron. It's going down pretty quick. The Poppy Copy's going to wind up knocking out SirT, so there's no smite available for the smite fight. Syndra might be able to try to steal it, but Kha'Zix is going to be able to smite that one away easy. Now they turn on to RF Legendary, who teleports in, but he's mini Gnar. Both of the summoner spells are down, and in addition to that, GBM's be able to pick up a kill onto Pekin move Syndra. The Poppy charging forward with the heroic charge onto SirT, knocks him against the wall. He's taking up all the spears, but they still have the Galio ultimate, so the dive is coming in for eUnited. 5 members strong are going through the tower. They pick up 4, they pick up a Baron, and they're going for more.
eUnited forced that Baron completely on Big God's Jackals. A really nice Poppy ultimate, chaining it off the Alistar stun, making sure that SirT cannot flash over it. It's a relatively telegraphed ability, and when you're coming for that Baron steal attempt against the Poppy, that's the only thing you have to look out for. Now, that said, maybe Big God's Jackal is not too familiar playing against the Poppy, but either way, well executed by eUnited. They take out the smite threat, they finish off the Baron before turning down and focusing multiple members of Big God's Jackals. And like you said, this mini Gnar comes in. He had just actually exhausted himself mid-teleport. You see him come in with that little bit of blue on him. That just shows that he is going into his mini hyper state. So he has no tankiness really available. He just gets blown up by deftly, and then the rest of the team, without their front line available, just get melted and chased down.
Even the follow-through down onto SirT on the Rek'Sai afterwards, eUnited were unafraid to dive through because they still had the Galio ultimate. They still had everything they needed to go through that time.
Yeah, you saw there were quite a few Ren stacks onto Poppy there, but with the armor and the damage reduction coming in from GBM's ultimate, as well as picking up the buckler, Holmes took no damage from all those stacks.
Yeah, more importantly, the fact that fabbbyyy, who was stuck hitting the Poppy the entire fight, he kind of had to kite back the entire time. No longer can the Kalista just sit there in the front line and wail on the tanks and just heal off of the fact that she has that Blade of the Rune King and has the Warlord's Bloodlust. The Bramble Vest is going to be cutting through with the grievous wounds, and we already saw the effects on that. fabbbyyy wasn't healthy in that fight. He had to run away. Yeah,
and he has no armor pen either, so we talk about some of the early armor itemization that came in for Licorice, given the fact that he is against physical damage dealing top and jungler. It's no surprise to see the AD carry struggling to do anything against him as well.
Well, SirT, maybe getting a little desperate, tries to use the ultimate to jump onto Dandy, but he's going to get burst out. He isolates himself. Zeyzal not able to pulverize through the lantern, and on the backside here, GBM is just 1v2 here. Dandy flashes forward. We'll end up eating the Syndra ultimate, but it will barely stay alive because the damage reduction, GBM going to utilize that protobot after a flash. They're just ripping through the side of Big God's Jackals. eUnited, it may have taken a little bit longer, but now they are decimating Big.
Another 4-for-0 right after they finish off that Baron. They get another one in the top jungle. Big Gods wanted to find an opening, couldn't quite do it. Dandy did get pretty low after he jumped in to finish off fabbbyyy, but really just heads-up play all around by eUnited. You see the Galio ultimate come in again. He starts trying to lifesteal off the wave a little bit, is able to heal up enough to stay alive. And with that, they grab their mid inhibitor and the top inner turret.
And this is Big God Jackals struggling to get anything done. We saw the engage started off by SirT. He utilizes the Rek'Sai also to just jump down onto the Kha'Zix, and he just caught out of position. The backside here, GBM, we saw him just pushing up the lane, jumps in here and completely takes over this fight.
Yeah, almost goes down there, just barely lives through that Syndra stun. And you saw the MF ultimate come over the top, throwing in some nice damage. And then, yeah, like we said, this front line is so tanky. You know, we were kind of talking about it from an even state a lot. As we see, hold on, Danny might be caught out once again. Oh,
SirT getting chunked out, RF Legendary. No real big Gnar bar quite yet, so he's not going to be able to wind up utilizing that Gnar ultimate to shove them back against the wall and try to set up a fight for Big God Jackals. We mentioned the tankiness of the front line. Now, Poppy has Righteous Glory, has the Bramble Vest, completed Gargoyle Stone Plate, has a Spirit Visage for herself. Also, we see GBM opting for his third item after, his, quote-unquote standard Adaptive Helm Proto Belt Medjai's build. Why not get a Warmog's armor?
I mean, that's the thing, is that, like I was saying, we were talking about eUnited's comp from even or slightly ahead, and having some concerns about how it would operate. Well, when it's super far ahead and you have this much engage and this much tankiness, there is no way for Big God's Jackals to peel you off their backline. And you see them just being able to charge through all these turrets, all this kiting out that Big God's Jackals is trying to do. And got to give this comp a little bit more credit than I gave it initially. It has so much frontlining potential that they almost never need to be scared.
Well, Big God Jackals trying to get an engagement down onto eUnited. SirT and Baiano trying to get to the backline, but deftly and Dandy are so well protected by that beefy front line from eUnited. The bolt time goes through, gets SirT and ARF Legendary extremely low, but it's just going to force them away from this tower here as eUnited don't even need a Baron buff anymore to push down into the base of Big God Jackals.
Grabbing their second inhibitor of the game, this time topside. No kills though, and they did get a little low during that engage. They don't have a lot of their cooldowns available, so they probably will have to back out here. But another nice push by eUnited.
Well, GBM's got this Warmog's armor. He's generating 99 HP every second he's out of combat, and that's in addition to the fact that he has an Ocean Drake picked up on their side as well.
Oh, GBM will be just fine.
Yeah.
But they are down all their ultimates, so it's a little bit hard to go for that kind of final push. So they're going to back off, going to spend some more of that gold that they have so much of. More armor coming in for multiple members of the front line of eUnited.
I mentioned this Miss Fortune pickup isn't going to position properly, isn't going to deal enough damage. It hasn't had to at this point in time, but very quietly, deftly has been building up a very wide array of different items in his arsenal. It's kind of combining two of the old styles of Miss Fortune. There is the standard lethality build, which had gotten strictly buffed on 7.14 with the changes to lethality, but also going for pieces of the critical strike build. So even if Miss Fortune's ultimate isn't going to be dealing damage, he has a lot of auto attack pickup here. He has the Essence Reaver for cooldown reduction, the Infinity Edge to really let those crits rain through, and the lethality for all the armor threat he needs at this point in the game.
We talk about maybe grabbing the Black Cleaver for the MF, but it looks like instead Dandy has picked that one up. It has been kind of being bumped more and more towards health instead of AD, so it makes sense to put it on the guy who might be jumping in a little bit. So overall, eUnited super far ahead. And like you said, yeah, definitely went from, I think, 0, 2, and 3 all the way up to 3, 2, and 7 now. Has done a great job of staying safe during these engages, letting his front line go in, and then when he finds the right moment, pull the trigger on the ultimate.
Right, and the fact of the matter is he has a 6-0 4 Kha'Zix and a 6-0 6 Galio. So no matter what he's done in this game so far, it's going to look really, really good for him. Big God's Jackals, though, things are not looking really good for them. They're hard-pressed against their own base. They've lost 2 inhibitors. It's going to be Baron up in 10 seconds that eUnited can basically take whenever they want because Big Gods are so stuck in their base. They can't really even defend. They can't even really go for a contest maybe.
Yeah, and it's really scary because at this point, you know, what are you targeting out of eUnited's drafts? They're taking so much different stuff that a lot of it not even standard champions, so you have to think about, you know, what do we want to focus down next game? I mean, maybe the Galio was a big problem this time around. It did have a lot of influence on the side lanes. It's an extremely strong champion, so maybe you take that one out. But what are you going to do about the Alistar, a champion that you thought you could bully? You were successfully bullying early on before it kind of got flipped around. It's really, really tough for Big God's Jackals here.
And what bans do you replace at that point? They had to replace one of the bans with the LeBlanc, which GBM just ran over them with in game number 1. They've been banning away Vladimir because they're afraid of GBM playing that champion. They banned away the Caitlyn when they were on blue sides that definitely didn't have a comfort pick that they could snowball their bottom side of the map advantage with. So what do you replace? You have to give GBM something else, and he's been a factor on 2 champions you didn't even know he played.
Well, on the flip side, they're going to be back on blue sides, or red sides, excuse me, most likely, so they will be forced into that Zac ban, and probably that Cho'Gath ban that this time eUnited picked up. So, like we said, really tough spot for Big God's Jackals here. Don't want to completely count them out of this game, but at a 13,000, 14,000 gold lead, 2 inhibitors down, Baron on eUnited, this game more than likely over.
Yeah, it's very difficult for Big God Jackals to try to come back into listen. Oh, they are the team that will be fishing for fights no matter what. SirT looks to be trying to go in on Deftly and Danny, but he's got to cut off on the rest of his team. He's going to be taken down by the Make It Rain. The E coming out from Deftly is now the rest of eUnited charging into the base of Big God Jackals. They force a flash away from RF Legendary, who's still a teeny tiny little Gnar. Zeyzal on the front line trying to just zone away Pekin Woof as he's on his own summoner platform. eUnited don't even need multiple kills to close this one out. All they got to do is take down the Nexus for the 2nd game victory.
Yep, gonna ignore that last inhibitor on the bot side. Going for a couple more kills right now instead of finishing it, but there they go. Grab game 2 in an equally dominating fashion. Maybe a little bit slower out the gate, but by 20 minutes, once again, complete control of this game and able to take very quick Barons, able to snowball those Barons into more and more objectives, and next thing you know, game's over.
Yeah, it took a little bit longer, so there's a bit of a lull, so it kind of felt like, oh, maybe Big God's Jackals is kind of, they picked the proper lanes to win this time around. They've been able to put pressure on the bottom side of the map, and they've been able to, you mentioned just before, kind of punish the Alistar pick throughout the lane phase of the game, but they weren't able to really kind of grab any sort of advantages. They just let eUnited kind of sit back, and all the kills and the gold counts are relatively even. eUnited was just buying time for item power spikes.
And that's the thing. You look at it looked like they had a really good game plan to deal with the Alistar pick this time and have their whole early game kind of set up around that. They just seem to mis-execute on a little bit, on top of the fact that eUnited read that one coming. So that level 1 push that they went a little bit too far, it allowed the side of eUnited to be underneath their turret, so you don't need to be worried about that Rek'Sai coming over the back wall at level 3, on top of the fact that GBM was able to get that smite steal away, deny the level 3 from SirT early on. He has to call his bot lane to help secure the blue buff, and then you're kind of into this split jungling pattern where you have a ton of time with Dandy up on the top side, and it just really threw their early game for a loop. And even though they continued to pressure around the bot lane, they got all the summoners out, and they got a small CS lead, by the time level 6s came around, already GBM was roaming and influencing the side lanes.
Right, and you mentioned GBM being a big influence onto the side lanes this game. Game number 1, it was Dandy who had the highlight reel. This time around, it's GBM picking up the Galio, heroically entering in style all over Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of targeting here as they ignore fabbbyyy, who's able to go in there and pick up the cleanup kill, making this a 1-for-1 trade. But once again, you are neutralizing these aggressive plays out of Big God Jackals. This time up on the top side, Licorice getting low as the TP came in from RF Legendary. He turns that one. He instantly teleports back mid. They find another pickoff into this mid lane, and he doesn't let up at any point, making sure that he keeps saving members, always keeping them alive at almost 0 health. That time, Dandy barely able to get out alive.
And showing us why he built the proto belt there by being able to pick up the kill on the Pekin Woof as he dives through that tower. But eUnited, once again, you mentioned just towards the end of that game, like they've been now dominating Big God's Jackals from the end of last week, where they were able to come back from a deficit and kind of close out that game despite GBM kind of not being as big of a factor on Talia. Now this time around, they've utilized what they have. Like they have had so far maybe 8 different champions throughout 2 games here. I mean, this is great because eUnited now, they're kind of being multifaceted and showcasing that it is about game 1, it was Dandy. Game 2, it was GBM. Before we've seen Licorice. Like every single person in this team is a carry threat.
And it's like you said, how they're doing it with all these different champions, things that were not super meta. I mean, MF is not a champion that you're going to look at and say, we should ban that. Alistar, probably not the same way. I mean, like I said, the Thresh Kalista, great idea behind it, but they couldn't quite execute on it. The Galio, probably a mistake letting that one through, given that you know that you can play Kha'Zix into Rek'Sai, not a terrible matchup. Maybe some small drafting errors, but as you head back in the red side, it's a lot harder to draft around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and some of the unfamiliarity around the champions kind of spilled over into what Big God Jackals was trying to do in their own game plan. They didn't necessarily know how quickly the eUnited team was going to be able to bait and take a Baron buff. They got the teleport out of Licorice's Poppy, and they thought that they're going to be safe, about 25 minutes into the game. But eUnited just start that Baron up again, and they're the one that's taking a fight.
Well, it's a good thing that they had managed to get such a lead already off all those side lane plays by GBM, because this was not a super clean Baron. I mean, it's a really nice Poppy ultimate to knock out the Rek'Sai to make sure this is a free Baron smite, but this could have been a disaster if the game was even, just because they're pinned up in the pit and they're getting collapsed on. Instead, they're super far ahead. Their tanks are able to walk forward. They take out the Syndra. They take out the Gnar, who teleports in as a mini Gnar. And then, like we said, super tanky. They continue chasing through. Here's another great Galio ultimate, keeping Licorice alive as it allows Dandy to kind of leapfrog through this fight, pick up the last couple kills. And yeah, like you said, they're so strong in game. They're so tanky. Even I was like, I don't know how this comp's going to work exactly. And it surprised me that once you get that kind of lead, there's just nothing the other team can do.
And Big Gods Jackals have now struggled through 2 different games where eUnited hasn't even really played anything that they were extremely comfortable on. I mean, they have deftly's Ashe in the first game, and Dandy on Kha'Zix is not an unfamiliar sight on the Summoner's Rift, but they played a bunch of things we haven't seen them play consistently throughout the Challenger Series. More importantly, their gambit of putting RF Legendary on the top side of the map instead of playing Chris hasn't paid off for him. They tried to give him advantages in both matchups in the lane phase, and he wasn't able to convert.
Yeah, that's definitely a big problem, the fact that the top side is not able to convert on bigger leads. He got Licorice low a number of times, but like we said, jungler was on the bot side the entire time, not able to call him up there to actually snowball that advantage. And 7-14, Tom, you don't know what people are playing anymore. You're saying these are not eUnited's standard champions. Well, maybe they will be throughout the playoffs. You know, the other team's going to have to look at this series very closely, and the winner of tomorrow is going to have to figure out exactly what out of all these champions is the actual problem.
All right, well, we've still got at least one more game to go in this best-of-5 series. We're going to be stepping away for a little bit, but stay tuned for more of this series between eUnited and Big Gods Jackals. You're watching the Challenger Summer Split Playoffs. Baiano has to flash away. fabbbyyy, though, trying to leap through, will wind up getting first blood. He's going to wind up going down shortly after that one to GBM. He's waiting to try to get into a safe spot. Rek'Sai, however, is going to utilize that ultimate to wind up picking up a kill onto MF. The Poppy Copter's going to go off, winds up knocking back a Pekin move, but not before he gets a parting shot kill from that ultimate onto Licorice. Syndra might be able to try to steal it, but Kha'Zix is going to be able to spike that one away easy. Now they turn on to RF Legendary, who teleports in, but he's mini Gnar. He's taking up all the spears, but they still have the Galio ultimate, so the dive is coming in for eUnited. 5 members strong are going through the tower. They pick up 4, they pick up a Baron, and they're going for more.